She spent years translating words about love without understanding what they meant. There are moments in life when we don't realize we're lost, not because we took a wrong turn, but because we stopped moving toward what truly matters. We wake up, we work, we fulfill expectations, we do everything right, and yet, something inside us grows quiet, not broken, just silent. This is a story about that silence, about a woman who spent years translating words about love, faith, and meaning, without realizing she had stopped living them. A woman who learned how to survive loss by building walls so strong that even joy could no longer reach her. And then, on an ordinary winter evening, one small, unexpected collision changed everything. Because sometimes, healing doesn't arrive as a miracle. It arrives as a question, a risk, a choice. This is the story of Elena, and of the moment she discovered that Christmas is not just something we remember once a year. It's something we are invited to live every single day. Welcome to Good Stories Today, a channel for stories that move the soul, restore hope, and remind us that even in a world full of noise, meaning still whispers to those willing to listen. Listen while you drive, while you work, or in those quiet moments when you need to remember that love hasn't disappeared. It's just waiting to take form again. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next stories. Because this isn't just a Christmas story. It's about everyone who ever learned how to endure life instead of fully living it. About everyone who built walls to survive pain and later discovered those same walls were keeping out joy. And about the simple, terrifying, beautiful truth that love only changes us when we allow it to become real. This is the voice of Christmas, when love became the only light. Part 1, The Winter of the Soul, Chapter 1, The City of Ice. Elena Morrison woke up at 5:30 a.m. to the sound of her alarm, like every other day. The small apartment in downtown Boston was wrapped in that blue-gray pre-dawn darkness that makes everything feel like it's underwater. She rose slowly, almost in slow motion, as if afraid to wake the day itself. In the tiny kitchen, she made coffee while mentally reviewing her task list. Finish translating Chapter 12, respond to Mr. Arnaldo's email, buy groceries on the way home, always tasks, never herself. The bathroom mirror reflected a woman of 31, with tired eyes and a smile that looked painted on. Elena dressed in mechanical movements, a conservative charcoal turtleneck, gray slacks, hair pulled back in a perfect bun. Nothing that called attention. Nothing that revealed who she really was inside. Before leaving, she glanced briefly at the stack of unopened Christmas cards on the hall table. Her chest tightened, but she looked away. She didn't have time for that. The subway was packed, as always. Bodies pressed against each other, each person lost in their own world. Elena put in her earbuds but didn't play music. She just let the silence fill her ears while she stared out the window. The city passed by quickly, holiday lights still glowing even as day broke. Boston was like that in December, a city that never stopped decorating, always demanding more cheer, more brightness, more forced joy. Just like everyone in Elena's life. At the publishing house, she was the invisible employee. Not in the sense of being despised, but of being so efficient, so quiet, so helpful that people simply assumed she'd always be there, ready to assist. Elena, can you finish this for me? Elena, would you mind staying late? Elena, you're so reliable. And she smiled, nodded, said it was no problem, but it was. It was an enormous problem. That morning, her boss, Mr. Arnaldo, called her into his office. He had that authoritarian manner typical of men who confuse leadership with intimidation. Elena, we need someone to prioritize the Christmas manuscript. It needs to be done before the holiday rush. I know I can count on you. It wasn't a question. It was a statement in disguise. Elena felt the no rising in her throat. She wanted to say she was tired, that she deserved rest, that she had a life beyond that office. But when she opened her mouth, what came out was, "Of course, Mr. Arnaldo, you can count on me." He smiled, satisfied, and dismissed her with a wave of his hand. Elena returned to her desk with a weight in her chest. She looked out the window and saw Boston's sky, gray and indifferent, and for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to think, when did I stop being myself? The manuscript sat on her desk, a leather-bound collection of ancient texts about Christmas traditions and their theological meanings. The Word made flesh, a historical and spiritual journey through Christmas. She'd been working on it for 3 months, translating from Latin and Old English, restoring meaning to words that had been written centuries ago. But as she translated phrases about love, sacrifice, and divine presence, Elena felt nothing. They were just words, beautiful, perhaps, but empty. Like her life. During lunch, Elena ate alone in a small cafe near the office. She always ate alone. Not because she didn't have colleagues, but because she'd learned it was easier that way. Fewer chances of having to fake interest in empty conversations. Less risk of someone asking questions about her life. While she picked at her soup without much appetite, her phone vibrated. A text from her aunt. "Will you come for Christmas Eve dinner? Your cousin Sarah will be there with her new baby. Don't disappoint us." Elena sighed. Christmas Eve was 2 weeks away, and she already knew how it would be. Everyone asking when she'd find someone, when she'd settle down, why she was always so distant, and the inevitable comment, "You look just like your mother." She loved Christmas. Past tense. Always past tense. She typed a quick response. "I'll be there," and put the phone away before another message could come. That's when she heard it. Carol singers on the street corner across from the cafe. A small group, bundled in scarves and middles, singing Silent Night, with voices that weren't perfect but were sincere. Elena turned her head and watched them. For a moment, she remembered being 12 years old, singing in the church choir with her mother beside her. She remembered how free she felt, how music was the only language that made sense. But then came the accident. The car that ran the red light 3 days before Christmas. The hospital. The silence that followed. And she'd never sung again. The carolers finished their song, and a few passers-by dropped bills in their collection jar. They thanked everyone with bright smiles. Elena watched for a few more seconds before getting up and returning to the office. But something inside her had shifted. A tiny spark, almost imperceptible. But it was there. That evening, after 3 more hours of overtime at the office, Elena finally got home. She dropped her bag on the couch and collapsed beside it. The apartment's silence was deafening. She grabbed the remote control, but before turning on the TV, her gaze landed on the manuscript she'd brought home to work on. She opened it to a random page and read, "The Incarnation is not merely a historical event to be commemorated, but an invitation to be lived. When the Word became flesh, it was not to remain distant, but to dwell among us, teaching us that love is not an abstract concept, but a tangible presence that transforms everything it touches." Elena read it 3 times. The words felt like they were speaking directly to her isolation, her fear, her carefully constructed walls. She closed the book slowly and stared at the dark window reflecting her dim apartment. "When did I stop dwelling among others?" she whispered to herself. No answer came, only the distant sound of the city. And for the first time in years, Elena felt something besides numbness. She felt the ache of absence. Chapter 2. The Silence of Translation. The days that followed were identical. Work, obligations, automatic smiles. But something had changed in Elena. She began noticing small details that had previously gone unnoticed. The sound of children laughing in the park near her building, a homeless man singing opera on the subway platform, the way afternoon light fell through the office window at exactly 3:47 p.m. It was as if her senses had awakened from a deep sleep. But with awakening came discomfort. The manuscript consumed her evenings. Mr. Arnaldo wanted it finished by December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, to meet the publisher's deadline for the holiday market. The pressure was constant. Elena sat at her small dining table every night, surrounded by dictionaries, reference books, and handwritten notes. The ancient texts spoke of things she'd spent years avoiding: incarnation, presence, sacrifice, transformative love. One passage particularly haunted her. The miracle of Christmas is not that God became man once, but that through love, we become fully human every day. The Word didn't just take flesh, it taught flesh to speak truth, to touch with tenderness, to see with compassion. Elena stared at those words for 20 minutes. She thought about her own flesh, how rarely she touched anyone, how her eyes avoided real contact, how her voice had become a tool for politeness rather than truth. "I'm a ghost," she said aloud to her empty apartment. A ghost translating words about being alive. Her phone buzzed, a text from her colleague Margaret. "A few of us are going for drinks Friday to celebrate the holidays. Want to come?" Elena's fingers hovered over the keyboard. The old instinct was to decline with a polite excuse, but something made her pause. She typed, "Maybe, let me see." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't her usual automatic no either. Margaret replied immediately, "That's more than you usually say. There's hope for you yet." Elena smiled despite herself, then felt guilty for smiling, as if she didn't deserve small moments of lightness. The weekend brought a cold snap. Boston transformed into a postcard, snow covering the common, lights twinkling in shop windows, couples walking arm in arm down Newbury Street. Elena ventured out Saturday afternoon to buy groceries and ended up walking longer than intended. She told herself she was just getting exercise, but really, she was avoiding her apartment's silence. She found herself in front of the old Granary Chapel, a small historic church tucked between modern buildings. She'd passed it 1,000 times but never gone inside. Today, the door was open. Elena hesitated at the threshold. She wasn't religious anymore. Hadn't been since the accident. Faith had felt like another promise broken, another presence that abandoned her when she needed it most. But something pulled her inside. The chapel was nearly empty. Just a few people scattered in pews, heads bowed in prayer or contemplation. Candles flickered near the altar, and the smell of old wood and incense filled the air. Elena slid into a back pew and sat in the silence. It was different from her apartment's silence. This felt held, as if the quiet itself was a form of presence rather than absence. She didn't pray, didn't know how anymore. But she closed her eyes and let herself simply be. When she opened them, an elderly woman was lighting candles at a side altar. She moved with slow grace, each gesture deliberate and reverent. When she finished, she turned and noticed Elena. Their eyes met. The woman smiled, not the polite smile of strangers, but something warmer. Recognition, perhaps, or compassion. "First time here, dear?" she asked softly. Elena nodded. "I'm Lucia. I take care of this place." She sat down in the pew in front of Elena and turned to face her. "What brings you?" Elena should have deflected, should have said something vague and left, but instead, she found herself saying, "I don't know. I was just walking and ended up here." Lucia nodded knowingly. The best arrivals are the ones we don't plan. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Lucia asked, "Are you carrying something heavy?" The question was so direct, so gentle, that Elena's defenses crumbled. I lost my family, she heard herself say. Years ago, right before Christmas, and I've been translating Christmas texts for work, but they feel like words from another language, like I can read them, but not understand them. Lucia reached over and gently touched Elena's hand. Understanding doesn't always come through the mind, dear. Sometimes it comes through the heart, and hearts need time to thaw. Elena felt tears threatening. What if mine's frozen solid? Then we wait for spring, Lucia said simply. And we sit by the fire until the ice melts. Either way, we don't give up on it. They talked for another 20 minutes, about nothing and everything. When Elena finally left, she felt lighter. Not healed, but seen. For the first time in years, someone had seen her. As she walked home through the snow, Elena found herself humming, just barely, under her breath. A Christmas carol her mother used to sing. It was the first time in 7 years that she'd let those notes pass her lips. Part 2. The Call and the Encounter. Chapter 3. The Meeting Under the Scarf. Monday evening, December 10th. Elena left the office later than usual, the manuscript pages heavy in her messenger bag. Mr. Arnaldo had added another section to translate, a collection of medieval poems about the Nativity. The snow had started falling again, thick and steady. Boston's streets glowed under streetlights. Everything muffled and magical in that way only fresh snow can create. Elena walked toward the subway station, head down, lost in thought about gerunds and subjunctive clauses in 14th century Latin. She didn't see the corner, neither did he. They collided at the intersection of Beacon and Charles Street, a solid impact that sent Elena's bag flying and scattered manuscript pages across the snowy sidewalk like fallen leaves. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," a deep voice, genuinely distressed. Elena looked up and saw him for the first time. Tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair dusted with snowflakes. He wore work boots, jeans, and a heavy canvas jacket that looked like it had seen 1,000 job sites. His eyes were warm brown, currently wide with concern. "I wasn't watching where I was going," he continued, already kneeling to gather the scattered pages. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," Elena managed, dropping to her knees to help collect the manuscript. "It's okay, really." Their hands reached for the same page. Touched. Both froze for just a second. One of those moments that seems to stretch, where the world goes slightly quiet and slightly brighter at the same time. He smiled. "I promise I'm not usually this destructive." Elena found herself smiling back. "And I'm not usually this distracted." They gathered the pages together, working in synchronized silence. When everything was back in her bag, he stood and offered his hand to help her up. "Gabriel," he said. "Gabriel Santos. Elena Morrison." They shook hands formally, which seemed absurdly polite, given they'd just crashed into each other. "You dropped this too." He held out her scarf, a deep burgundy wool that had been her mother's. It must have fallen in the collision. Elena reached for it, but Gabriel didn't immediately let go. He was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Curiosity, recognition, something else. "Are you sure you're okay?" he asked again. "Yes, really, just embarrassed. Don't be. I'm the one who wasn't paying attention. I was thinking about..." He stopped himself. "Never mind. Long day. You work around here?" "Just up the street. Publishing house." He nodded toward her bag. "And you're taking work home? During the holidays?" "It's a deadline." "Isn't everything?" He said it without judgment, just understanding. Then, "Can I at least buy you a coffee? To apologize properly for nearly tackling you." Elena's first instinct was to say no, to politely decline, go home to her quiet apartment, keep her life contained. But she heard herself say, "Okay." Gabriel's face lit up. "Yeah, great. There's a place just around the corner. Best hot chocolate in Boston, if you're willing to risk my recommendations." They walked the 2 blocks to a small cafe called The Fireside. Inside, it was warm and crowded with people escaping the snow. They found a table by the window. "So," Gabriel said after they'd ordered, hot chocolate for both of them, "what kind of deadline has you working this late in December?" "A manuscript about Christmas. Historical and theological texts. And you're translating it. And restoring some of the older passages. They've degraded over time." Gabriel leaned forward, genuinely interested. "That's incredible. So you're not just translating words, you're rescuing them." Elena had never thought of it that way. "I suppose so. What language?" "Latin, mostly. Some Old English, a bit of medieval French." He let out a low whistle. "You're like an archaeologist of meaning." She laughed, a real laugh that surprised her. "That's one way to put it. What does it say? The manuscript?" Elena paused. How to explain texts she'd been reading mechanically for months. But something about Gabriel's attention, the way he really listened, made her want to try. It talks about incarnation, about how the Christmas story isn't just about a baby born 2,000 years ago, but about presence, about love taking form, taking flesh. "The Word made flesh," Gabriel said quietly. Elena looked up, startled. "You know your theology." "Catholic school," he said with a grin. 12 years of it. Some things stick." His expression grew more serious. "But I always liked that phrase. The Word made flesh. It means words aren't enough. You have to live them, make them real." "Is that what you do?" Elena asked. "Make things real." "I try. I'm an architect. But not the fancy kind designing skyscrapers. I work with community projects, restoring old buildings that still have purpose. Right now, I'm here in Boston to renovate an orphanage on the South Side." "An orphanage?" "It's been closed for 5 years. Building's in rough shape, but a local nonprofit got funding to reopen it as a community center with housing for kids in transition. I'm overseeing the renovation." Elena studied him. There was something different about Gabriel, a kind of settled purpose, like he knew exactly why he did what he did. "That sounds meaningful," she said. "It is. But it's also hard. You tear down walls and find structural problems. You plan for one thing and discover you need to do 10 other things first. It's messy and frustrating and..." He stopped, laughed. "Sorry, I get carried away." "No, it's okay. I understand. Translation is like that too. You think you know what a word means, and then you find 6 other possible meanings, and you have to choose which truth to preserve." Gabriel nodded slowly. "Exactly which truth to preserve." He looked at her intently. "And which one do you usually choose?" The question caught Elena off guard. The safest one, I guess. The one that won't offend anyone or get questioned." "But is it the truest one?" Elena didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Their hot chocolate arrived, breaking the moment. They sipped in comfortable silence, watching snow fall outside the window. "So," Gabriel said after a while, "are you from Boston?" "Yes, born and raised. You?" "Providence, originally, but I move around for work. This project will keep me here through the new year, at least." "Do you like moving?" He considered the question. "Sometimes. It's easier than staying in one place and having to deal with things." He looked at her meaningfully. "But I'm learning that running from things doesn't make them go away." Elena felt like he could see right through her carefully constructed walls. "I should go," she said suddenly, gathering her things. "It's late." "Wait." Gabriel pulled out his phone. "Can I Can I have your number? I'd like to see you again. Maybe coffee that isn't preceded by a collision. Elena hesitated. Every instinct screamed to say no. To keep this encounter contained. One night. One conversation. Nothing more. But she heard herself giving him her number. As they parted outside the cafe, Gabriel called after her. Elena, you dropped something. She turned back. He was holding her scarf again. She'd left it on the table. You keep almost losing this, he said, walking it over to her. This time, when he handed it to her, his fingers deliberately brushed hers. Maybe it's trying to tell you something. What? That some things are worth holding on to. Elena wrapped the scarf around her neck, her heart beating faster than it should. Good night, Gabriel. Good night, Elena. I'll text you. She walked to the subway in a daze, the scarf warm around her neck, Gabriel's words echoing in her mind. When she got home, she found a piece of paper tucked into her manuscript pages, one of Gabriel's business cards that must have fallen into her bag during the collision. Gabriel Santos, Restorative Architecture, Building with Purpose. Underneath, in handwritten pencil, some things are meant to be restored. Elena held the card for a long time before carefully placing it in her desk drawer. That night, she dreamed of snow and warm eyes and words becoming flesh. Chapter 4, The Unlikely Invitation. Gabriel texted the next morning. Good morning, Elena. Are you free for lunch today? I promise not to crash into you this time. Elena stared at her phone for 5 full minutes before responding. I usually eat at my desk. His reply came immediately. Usually is not the same as always. Give me 1 hour. I'll meet you at your office at noon. She should have said no. Should have invented a meeting, a deadline, anything. Instead, she texted back, okay. At 11:55 a.m., Elena found herself checking her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She'd worn her usual gray turtleneck and black slacks, hair in its customary bun. But now she wondered if she should have, worn color. Let her hair down. Stop it, she told her reflection. It's just lunch. But her heart was beating faster than just lunch warranted. Gabriel was waiting outside the building at exactly noon, leaning against a light post with his hands in his jacket pockets. When he saw her, his whole face lit up. Hey, ready for actual food? They walked to a small sandwich shop 2 blocks away. The lunch rush was in full swing, but they managed to snag a corner table. So, Gabriel said as they ate, I have a confession. Elena's stomach dropped. Here it comes, she thought. The catch, the complication. I Googled you last night, he continued. Hope that's not creepy. I found some of your published translations. Elena, you're really talented. Relief and embarrassment washed over her. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to understand what you do. There was this article about how you restored a 16th century manuscript that everyone thought was too damaged to save. They called you meticulous and brilliant. Elena felt her face heating. It was my job. It was more than that. You gave voice to words that were silent for centuries. He paused. That's what I do too, in a way. Give new life to spaces that have been abandoned. Like the orphanage. Exactly. His expression grew more animated. Elena, you should see this place. It's this beautiful old Victorian building, probably built in the 1880s. High ceilings, these incredible arched windows, original woodwork. But it's been neglected for so long. Broken stairs, water damage, the works. Why did it close? Funding ran out. City didn't see it as a priority, so it just sat there, empty. But the bones are still good. It still has purpose. Elena found herself leaning forward. And now we're bringing it back, converting the upper floors into apartments for teenagers aging out of foster care. Ground floor will be a community center, tutoring, meals, a safe place to just be. That sounds wonderful. Gabriel's eyes met hers. It will be, but I need help with something. What? The community center needs to feel warm, welcoming. Right now, it's just empty rooms with construction dust. I'm good at structural things, plumbing, electricity, making sure the roof doesn't leak. But making a space feel like home, that's not my strength. What do you need? He took a breath. Would you come see it? Maybe help me think about how to make it feel. I don't know. Alive. You work with words and meaning all day. I work with wood and concrete. But we're both trying to create something that matters, right? Elena should have said no, should have protected her carefully scheduled, carefully isolated life. But she heard herself asking, when? This Saturday. I'll be there all day working. You could come by whenever. I don't know anything about interior design. That's okay. I'm not asking for a professional. I'm asking for your heart, your sense of what makes a space feel safe. Something in his words pierced through Elena's defenses. Maybe it was the way he said, safe. Maybe it was the vulnerability in asking. Okay, she said. Saturday afternoon. Gabriel's smile was radiant. Thank you. Really. He pulled out his phone and sent her the address. It's in Roxbury. Not the prettiest neighborhood, but it's real. And these kids, they need something real. They finished lunch talking about less weighty things, favorite books, worst coffee they'd ever had, whether Boston winters were worse than Providence winters. But underneath the light conversation, Elena felt something shifting. A door opening, a wall beginning to crack. As they walked back to her office, Gabriel said, "Can I ask you something personal?" Elena tensed. Maybe. That scarf you wear, it's important to you, isn't it? She touched it instinctively. It was my mother's. Was? She died 7 years ago, car accident, 3 days before Christmas. Gabriel stopped walking. Elena, I'm so sorry. It's okay. It was a long time ago. Time doesn't make loss okay. It just makes it different. The way he said it made Elena look at him more closely. You've lost someone too. It wasn't a question. He nodded. My brother, 4 years ago. Cancer. He was 26. They stood on the snowy sidewalk, two people who'd learned too young that the world could take away what you loved most. Is that why you do what you do? Elena asked softly. The restoration work? Partially. After Marco died, I couldn't stand the idea of letting more things fall apart. If I could fix buildings, restore them, give them new purpose, maybe it meant something. Maybe it meant his life mattered. It did matter, Elena said with certainty. How do you know? Because you're here, trying to build something good because of him. That's how love works. It doesn't end. It transforms. Gabriel looked at her with something like wonder. You should read that in your manuscript, about incarnation and presence. Elena smiled sadly. Reading it and believing it are different things. Then maybe you need to do something that makes you believe it. Like what? Like helping me create a space where kids who've lost things can find something new. Like taking words about love becoming flesh and making them real. Elena's breath caught. Is that what you're really asking me? Yes. I'm asking you to take a risk with me. Not just with the orphanage, with being alive again. They'd reached her office building. People streamed past them, busy with their own lives. Snow continued to fall gently. I'll see you Saturday, Elena said quietly. You will, Gabriel confirmed. Then, impulsively, he reached out and straightened her scarf where it had gotten twisted. His hand lingered for just a moment on her shoulder. Thank you for lunch. And for talking. Really talking. Elena watched him walk away, his hands back in his pockets, his shoulders squared against the cold. When she got back to her desk, Margaret stopped by. Was that the guy from lunch? Please tell me you have a date. It's not a date. He needs help with a project. Margaret raised an eyebrow. Uh-huh. And does this project involve his eyes looking at you like you hung the moon? Margaret, I'm just saying, that man is interested. Question is, are you? After Margaret left, Elena pulled out her phone and looked at Gabriel's contact information. On impulse, she texted him, "What if I'm not good at this, at being present or helpful?" His response came quickly. "Then we'll figure it out together. Besides, I think you're better at it than you believe. See you Saturday." Elena saved the message. That night, working on the manuscript, she came across a passage that stopped her cold. The incarnation is God's great gamble. That love is worth the risk of pain. That presence is worth the cost of vulnerability. That dwelling among the wounded is worth becoming wounded yourself. And so the word took flesh, knowing it would be pierced. Elena read it 3 times, Gabriel's invitation echoing in her mind. He was asking her to take a gamble too, to risk presence, to risk being wounded again. She looked at her mother's scarf hanging on the back of her chair. "What would you do, Mom?" she whispered. The silence didn't answer. But somehow, Elena knew. Her mother would tell her to go, to take the risk, to let her frozen heart sit by the fire until it remembered how to feel. Part 3, The Journey and the Tests. Chapter 5, Cracks in the Ice. Saturday arrived with clear, bright cold. Elena changed outfits 3 times before settling on dark jeans, boots, a warm cream-colored sweater, and of course, her mother's scarf. She took the subway to Roxbury, watching the city change as the train moved through different neighborhoods. The buildings grew older, more worn, but there was life here. Kids playing in a snow-covered playground, a bodega with Christmas lights in the window, people calling to each other across the street. The address Gabriel had given her led to a large Victorian building on a corner lot. It was beautiful, even in its current state. 3 stories of red brick with white trim, tall windows, a wraparound porch that had seen better days. Gabriel was on the porch, hammer in hand, repairing loose boards. He looked up when she approached and broke into a huge smile. "You came?" "I said I would." "I know, but..." He set down the hammer and came down the steps. "Thanks. Really." He was covered in sawdust, his hair messed up, a smudge of something dark on his cheek. He looked happy, fully present in his work. "Come on, I'll give you the tour." Inside, the building smelled of fresh paint and old wood. The entry hall had high ceilings with ornate molding, a grand staircase, built-in benches along the walls. "This is going to be the main gathering area," Gabriel explained. "But right now it's just space." See what I mean? Elena turned slowly, taking it in. He was right. It had all the elements of beauty, but no warmth, no soul. "What was it like when it was still open?" she asked. "I found some old photos. Want to see?" He pulled out his phone and showed her black and white pictures from the 1960s and 70s. Children sitting on those benches reading books, a Christmas tree in the corner by the stairs, artwork on the walls, a piano against the far wall. "And it was alive," Elena said softly. "Exactly, and I want it to be alive again. But I don't know how to do that. How do you make a building feel like it's welcoming you?" Elena walked through the space, her translator's mind working differently now. Not translating words, but translating feeling into form. You need memories here, she said finally. Not new ones yet. You can't force those. But you need to honor the old ones. Show that this place has a history of caring for people. How? What happened to all the things that were here before? The furniture, the decorations? Most was sold or thrown out when the place closed. But there's some stuff in the basement storage. Just boxes of junk, probably. Can we look? Gabriel led her down narrow stairs to a basement that ran the length of the building. Rows of metal shelving held dusty boxes, old filing cabinets, forgotten equipment. Elena began opening boxes. Most held exactly what Gabriel said, junk. But then she found one labeled, Christmas 1968. Inside, ornaments wrapped in tissue paper, mostly broken, a tarnished star, and at the bottom, a leather photo album. Elena carefully opened it. Page after page of Christmas celebrations at the orphanage, children in their best clothes gathered around a tree, volunteers serving dinner, a nativity play with cardboard wings and halos made of tinsel. Gabriel, look at this. He came over, and they stood close together, turning pages. The images were faded but full of life. Kids laughing, adults hugging them, the building decorated with obvious love. We should use these, Elena said. Frame some of them. Put them in the gathering hall. So the kids who come now know they're part of a story that's been going on for over a century. Gabriel looked at her with something like awe. That's perfect. That's exactly what this place needs. They spent the next hour going through boxes, finding treasures. An old guest book with signatures and notes. A hand-painted sign that said, "Home is where love lives." A set of mismatched coffee mugs that had clearly been used for countless hot chocolates. As they worked, Elena felt something loosening in her chest. It felt good to be doing something with her hands. Something real. There's someone I want you to meet, Gabriel said. If you have time? Okay. He led her up to the second floor, where the sound of a basketball bouncing echoed from one of the rooms. Inside, a small boy, maybe 7 or 8, was shooting baskets at a Nerf hoop on the wall, missing most of his shots. Hey, Tico, Gabriel called gently. The boy turned. He was small for his age, with huge dark eyes and a serious expression. This is my friend Elena. Elena, this is Tico. He's been helping me out on Saturdays. Elena waved. Hi, Tico. The boy didn't respond, just watched her carefully, as if assessing threat level. Tico doesn't talk much, Gabriel said quietly, but he's the best helper I've got. Tico's expression softened just slightly at the compliment. Elena sat down on the floor, not approaching the boy, just making herself smaller, less threatening. I don't talk much either, she said honestly. And lots of people think silence is bad, but sometimes it's just safer. Tico's eyes widened slightly. He took a step closer. You know what I do for work? Elena continued, pulling out her phone. I fix old words that got broken over time. Want to see? She showed him a photo of an ancient manuscript page, partially damaged. Then she swiped to show the restored version. See? You take something that seems ruined, and with enough care and time, you can make it whole again. Tico came closer, looking at the images. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small toy car, broken, with one wheel missing. He held it out to Elena. You want me to fix this? She asked gently. He nodded. Gabriel's voice was thick with emotion. He hasn't asked anyone for anything in 3 months. Elena took the car carefully, as if it were made of crystal. I'll try. I can't promise I can make it perfect, but I'll try to make it whole enough to work again. Is that okay? Tico nodded again. Then, in the quietest voice imaginable, whispered, Thank you. Elena felt tears sting her eyes. This tiny boy, who'd clearly been hurt somehow, had just trusted her with something precious. And she realized this was what Gabriel had been trying to tell her. This was the incarnation in action, love taking form through small, concrete acts of care. After they left Tico shooting baskets again, Gabriel turned to Elena in the hallway. "Thank you for that. He hasn't spoken to anyone since he came here 3 weeks ago. Not even me." What happened to him? His mom's in rehab. His dad's not in the picture. He was in 3 different foster homes in 2 months before ending up in temporary care here while they stabilize things. Kid's been through hell. "He reminds me of someone," Elena said softly. "Who?" "Me." They stood in the hallway, the afternoon light slanting through the tall windows. "You're not broken, Elena," Gabriel said. "How do you know?" "Because broken things don't help other broken things heal. Only things that have been restored can do that. And you just restored that boy's hope that someone might actually care enough to fix what matters to him." Elena couldn't speak. The truth of his words cut too deep. They spent the rest of the afternoon planning the gathering hall, where to hang the old photos, how to arrange furniture to create both community space and quiet corners, what colors would make the room feel warm without being overwhelming. As the sun started to set, they sat on the front porch steps, drinking coffee from Gabriel's thermos. "I've been thinking about your manuscript," Gabriel said. "About the word becoming flesh. I think I get it now." "What do you mean?" "Words are important. They carry meaning, truth, history. But if they only stay as words, they're incomplete. They have to become action, become presence. Become something you can touch and feel and experience." "Like restoration," Elena said. "Like restoration. Like love." He looked at her directly. "Like showing up for someone even when it's easier to stay home." Elena felt her heart beating faster. "Gabriel, I'm not asking you for anything," he said quickly. "I just want you to know that you showing up today mattered. To Tico, to this place, to me." They sat in comfortable silence as the streetlights came on, the city settling into evening. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said. "Anything." "Why did you really ask me to help? The truth?" Gabriel took a long drink of coffee before answering. "Because when I met you, even in that first collision, I saw someone who was translating everybody else's life while barely living her own. And I know what that's like. After my brother died, I spent 2 years just existing, going through motions, until someone asked me to help with a community project, and I realized that maybe the way out of grief isn't to avoid it, but to transform it into something that serves others. Is that what you think I need to do? I think you need to stop being afraid of your own heart." He said it gently, without judgment. "And I think maybe we could help each other with that." Elena didn't know how to respond. Part of her wanted to run. This was getting too real, too fast. But another part, the part that had been silent for 7 years, wanted to stay. "I should go," she said, standing. "It's getting late." Gabriel stood too. "Elena, wait, before you go." He pulled something from his pocket, Tico's broken car. "The boy wanted you to take this. Said you promised to try to fix it." Elena took the car, the tiny weight of it heavy with meaning. "I did promise. And you keep your promises. I try to." "Good." Gabriel smiled. "Then promise me you'll come back next Saturday. We're going to start setting up the gathering hall. I could use your eye for where things should go." Elena looked at the car in her hand, looked at Gabriel's hopeful face, looked at the building behind them that was slowly being restored. "I promise," she said. Walking to the subway, Elena held the toy car carefully. When she got home, she set it on her desk next to her manuscript, 2 broken things waiting to be made whole. That night, she worked on translating a new section. The scandal of the Incarnation is not that God became human, but that God chose to remain present even when rejected, even when ignored, even when crucified. The Word did not return to heaven at the first sign of resistance. It stayed. It dwelt among us. It insisted on presence even when absence would have been easier. Elena read it 3 times, thinking of Gabriel's question. Would she keep showing up, even when it was hard? Even when her fear screamed at her to retreat? She looked at the broken car. "Okay," she whispered to the empty room. "I'll stay present. I'll try." It wasn't a big declaration, but it was a start. Chapter 6. Ghosts of Christmas Past. The following Tuesday, Elena sat in Mr. Arnaldo's office for their weekly check-in on the manuscript. "You're behind schedule," he said without preamble. "We need this finished by the 23rd. That's less than 2 weeks." "I know. I'm working on it. Are you, because Margaret mentioned you've been distracted lately, taking longer lunches, leaving on time instead of staying late?" Elena felt heat rise in her face. "I've been meeting all my deadlines. Barely. And barely isn't good enough for this project. The publisher is counting on this being ready for Christmas sales." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Is something going on? Personal issues?" "Yes," Elena thought. "I'm slowly coming back to life after 7 years of being numb. And it's terrifying and wonderful and completely disrupting my carefully maintained emptiness." But she said, "No, nothing's going on. I'll have the manuscript done on time." "See that you do. The company has invested a lot in you, Elena. Don't make me regret that." Elena left his office feeling the old familiar pressure settling back on her shoulders. The pressure to perform, to not disappoint, to be the reliable, invisible employee who never caused trouble. She sat at her desk and stared at the manuscript pages. The words that had seemed so alive a few days ago now felt heavy again. Burdensome. Her phone buzzed. Text from Gabriel. "How's your day?" She typed back. "Complicated. You?" "Same. Contractor found more water damage. Budget's getting tight, but we'll figure it out." "How do you stay optimistic?" "Who says I am? Some days I'm not. But I've learned that giving up is more exhausting than pushing forward." Elena stared at those words, then typed, "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you ever feel like you're disappointing everyone? Like no matter what you do, you're letting someone down?" His response took a minute. "All the time. But I've learned to ask myself, whose expectations am I trying to meet? And are they reasonable? Or am I trying to be perfect for people who will never be satisfied?" Elena didn't respond right away. She was thinking about Mr. Arnaldo, her aunt, even her mother, whose memory she'd turned into an impossible standard. Gabriel texted again. "You okay?" "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm being pulled in 2 directions. The old safe life where I know what's expected, and this new thing that feels more real but also more terrifying. Want to talk about it? I can take a break." "No, you have work. I'm okay." "Elena, the work can wait." "You can't. Where are you?" "My office." "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Meet me outside." Elena should have said no. Should have stayed at her desk and powered through like always. Instead, she grabbed her coat. When Gabriel arrived, he didn't ask questions, just said, "Walk with me." They walked through the common, the snow crunching under their feet. Lunchtime crowds moved around them, everyone busy with their own urgency. "Tell me about your mother," Gabriel said finally. Elena hadn't talked about her mother, really talked about her, in years. But standing there in the cold December air, something unlocked. She was a music teacher, sang in the church choir. She had this way of making everyone feel like they mattered, like their voice was important. She sounds wonderful. She was, and she loved Christmas. Not the commercial part, the meaning part. She used to say that Christmas was about God choosing to be close to us, not far away, about love taking form. Like your manuscript. Exactly. She actually helped inspire my love of languages. She said music was a universal language, but so was kindness, and she wanted me to help translate beauty for people. Is that why you became a translator? Elena nodded. But after she died, the words felt empty. I kept translating them, but I didn't believe them anymore. And now, I don't know. Being at the orphanage, meeting Tico, seeing what you're building, it's like the words are starting to mean something again. But that's scary because if they mean something, then I have to actually live them. I can't just hide in my safe, small life. Gabriel stopped walking and turned to face her. Elena, can I tell you something that might sound harsh? She tensed. Okay. Your safe, small life is killing you. I saw it that first night we met. You looked like a ghost. Beautiful, but not quite there. And I get it because I was the same way after Marco died. I built this fortress of work and control and never staying anywhere long enough to feel things. What changed? I got tired of being lonely in crowded rooms. I realized that protecting yourself from pain also protects you from joy. And that's not living, that's just existing. Elena felt tears threaten. But what if I try to live and I lose everything again? What if I open my heart and it gets shattered? Then it gets shattered, Gabriel said gently. And then, somehow, you pick up the pieces and keep going. Because the alternative, staying frozen forever, is worse than any pain. How do you know? Because I tried it, and it almost destroyed me. He stepped closer. Elena, I'm not asking you to be fearless. I'm just asking you to be brave. There's a difference. What's the difference? Fearless means you don't feel the fear. Brave means you feel it and do the thing anyway. They stood there in the snow, two people who'd been broken, trying to figure out if they could trust being whole. I fixed Tico's car, Elena said suddenly. What? She pulled it from her pocket, the little toy car, now with all 4 wheels attached. The paint touched up with model paint she'd bought. It's not perfect. You can still see where it was broken. But it works again. Gabriel took the car, turning it over in his hands. Elena, this is incredible. When did you do this? Last night, I couldn't sleep, and I kept thinking about his face when he gave it to me. The trust in that. So I got up at 2 a.m. and worked on it until it was done. He's going to love this. I hope so. I know what it's like to have something precious that's broken. Sometimes you just need someone to care enough to try to fix it. Gabriel looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Then he did something unexpected. He pulled her into a hug. Elena stiffened at first, not used to physical affection. But then she let herself relax into it. Let herself feel the warmth of another person. The simple human comfort of being held. When they pulled apart, Gabriel said, "Thank you for trusting me with your story about your mother. And about your fear. That took courage. It doesn't feel like courage. It never does from the inside, but it is." He checked his watch. "You should probably get back. Angry boss and all." "Yeah." Elena didn't move. "But Saturday, you're still coming." "I promised, didn't I?" "You did, and I'm holding you to it." As Elena walked back to the office, she felt different, lighter somehow. She pulled out her phone and texted Gabriel, "Thank you for the walk, and for listening." His response, "Anytime. That's what friends do." Friends. The word felt strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. Back at her desk, Elena opened the manuscript with new eyes. The words weren't just academic exercises anymore. They were questions being asked of her life. The Incarnation asks us, will you risk presence? Will you choose proximity over safety? Will you allow yourself to be touched by the world's pain and joy, knowing that both will mark you forever? Elena thought about Tico's car in her pocket, about Gabriel's hug, about her mother's scarf around her neck. Yes, she whispered to the manuscript. I think I will. She worked until 7 p.m. that night, not because Mr. Arnaldo demanded it, but because the words were flowing. For the first time in years, translation felt like more than work. It felt like discovery. On her way out, she passed Margaret's desk. Hey, Elena, that guy you've been seeing, we're just friends. Right, and I'm the Queen of England. Margaret smiled. Look, I've known you for 3 years, and I've never seen you this present. Whatever's happening, don't sabotage it, okay? What makes you think I would? Because that's what we do when something good scares us. We find reasons it won't work and preemptively end it. Don't do that. Elena nodded slowly. I'll try not to. Good. Now go home and do whatever normal people do at night. Watch TV, eat ice cream, text your handsome architect friend. Elena found herself smiling as she left the building. When did she become someone who smiled? That night, before bed, she looked at her mother's scarf hanging in her closet. She pulled it down and held it close, breathing in the faint scent that still clung to the wool after all these years. Mom, she whispered, I'm trying to let myself feel again. It's scary, but I think it's worth it. The scarf offered no answer. But Elena imagined her mother's voice anyway. Baby girl, you were always worth it. Every risk, every possibility. You were always worth the chance. She hung the scarf back up and climbed into bed. And for the first time in 7 years, she fell asleep thinking about tomorrow instead of yesterday. Chapter 7. The Night of the Chapel. Saturday arrived with a winter storm warning. Heavy snow expected by evening. Most people were staying home, stocking up on supplies, preparing to be snowed in. Elena almost canceled. It would be the sensible thing to do. But she'd made a promise to Tico. She had his car in her pocket, repaired and ready to return. She texted Gabriel, "Is the orphanage visit still on with the storm coming? I'll be there either way, but no pressure if you want to stay safe at home." Elena looked out her window at the gray sky already starting to spit snow. Safe at home. That had been her mantra for 7 years. She texted back, "I'll be there by 2. I have something for Tico." Gabriel's response was a simple heart emoji. The subway ride to Roxbury took longer than usual, trains delayed by the weather. By the time Elena arrived at the orphanage, snow was falling steadily, and the temperature had dropped. Gabriel met her at the door, dusted with snow, looking concerned. "You shouldn't have come in this weather." "I wanted to." Elena pulled out Tico's car. "Where is he?" "Upstairs." "But Elena, the roads are getting bad. Maybe you should give him the car quickly and then head home before it gets worse." "We'll see." They found Tico in the same room as before, sitting by the window watching the snow fall. When he saw Elena, his face lit up in a way that made her chest ache. "Hi, Tico," she said softly, sitting down next to him. "I have something for you." She held out the car. Tico's eyes went wide. He took it carefully, turning it over in his small hands, testing each wheel to make sure it really worked. Then he did something that shocked them both. He launched himself at Elena in a fierce hug. Elena froze for a second, then wrapped her arms around the small boy, feeling his thin frame trembling slightly. When he pulled back, there were tears on his cheeks. "Thank you," he whispered. Then, louder, "You fixed it. You really fixed it." "I promised I would try," Elena said, her own voice shaky. "Nobody ever keeps promises to me," Tico said matter-of-factly. "But you did." In that moment, Elena understood what Gabriel had been trying to teach her, that small acts of care weren't small at all. To this little boy, a fixed toy car meant someone had seen him, remembered him, cared enough to spend time on something that mattered to him. That was incarnation, love taking form. Tico played with his car, while Elena and Gabriel worked on the gathering hall, hanging the old photographs, arranging furniture they'd salvaged and cleaned. As they worked, the storm outside intensified. By 5 p.m., the snow was coming down in sheets. The power flickered once, twice. "Elena, we need to get you home," Gabriel said, looking worried. "The T is probably shutting down." They checked the transit app. The last train to Elena's neighborhood was leaving in 20 minutes. Impossible to make it in this storm. "You can stay here," Gabriel said. "The heat works, there are blankets, it's not fancy, but..." The power went out. They stood in sudden darkness, the only light coming from the snow glow through the windows. "Or not," Gabriel finished. "Is Tico? He's with his social worker tonight. It's just us here." Just us. The words hung in the air. Gabriel found a flashlight and some candles. They lit them, creating a circle of warm light in the growing cold. "There's a small chapel in the building," Gabriel said. "Original to the structure. It has a fireplace. We could go there, build a fire, wait out the worst of the storm." A chapel. The nuns who originally ran this place were very devout. The chapel's on the first floor, fully restored. It's actually the warmest room in the building right now. Elena nodded. "Okay." Gabriel led her down a hallway to a set of double doors she hadn't noticed before. Inside was a small but beautiful space, wooden pews, stained glass windows barely visible in the dim light, and at the front, a fireplace with wood already stacked beside it. Gabriel got the fire going while Elena explored. Above the fireplace was a simple wooden cross. Below it, tucked in a corner, was a nativity scene, hand-carved figures, probably decades old, arranged on a bed of real straw. "The nuns left this behind," Gabriel said, joining her. "I found it in the chapel storage. Thought it belonged here." Elena knelt down to look at the figures more closely. Mary and Joseph, gazing at the infant. Shepherds and animals gathered around. The scene was simple, almost crude in its execution. But something about it felt deeply true. "The Word made flesh," she said quietly. "What?" "That's what this is. The whole Christmas story. God choosing to be close to us, to be vulnerable, to be present." Gabriel sat down on the floor beside her, the firelight casting shadows on his face. "Is that what your manuscript says?" "In more elaborate language, but yes." Elena touched one of the shepherd figures gently. "These were made by hand. You can see the tool marks, the imperfections. Whoever carved these poured care into them. Like you with Tico's car." "I suppose so." She sat back, still looking at the nativity. "I've been thinking about what you said, about words needing to become flesh, become action. And I think I've spent 7 years living in my head, translating other people's experiences of love and faith and meaning, but not having any of my own. It was safer that way, less painful, but also less alive," Gabriel said gently. "Yes." Elena turned to look at him. The firelight caught in his eyes, making them warm and deep. "Gabriel, why did you really ask me to help with this project? And don't say it was just about design." He was quiet for a long moment. the only sound the crackling fire and wind howling outside. Because when I met you, I recognized myself, he said finally. On someone who'd been hurt and decided the solution was to never risk being hurt again. And I thought, maybe if we both tried to come back to life at the same time, it would be less scary. Is it less scary? No, he admitted with a rueful smile. It's terrifying, but it's also everything. They sat in the chapel's warmth, the storm raging outside, and Elena felt something shift fundamentally inside her. Like ice breaking, not violently, but inevitably, when spring finally comes. Can I tell you what I'm most afraid of? She asked. Please. I'm afraid that if I let myself love again, love anything, anyone, I'll lose it. And I barely survived losing my mother. I don't think I could survive another loss like that. Gabriel reached out and took her hand. You're right. You might lose again. That's the risk of being alive. But Elena, you're already losing. You're losing years of your life to fear. You're losing connection, joy, purpose. What if the real risk is not opening your heart, but keeping it closed? Elena felt tears spill over. I don't know how to do this, how to be open, how to trust. Nobody knows how. We all just stumble through it. He squeezed her hand gently. But we don't have to stumble alone. They sat holding hands as the fire burned and the snow fell, and the chapel held them in its quiet grace. After a while, Elena said, "That passage I've been translating, about the incarnation, there's a line that keeps haunting me." "What is it?" She recited from memory. "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, not as a visitor, but as a neighbor, not as a judge, but as a friend, not from a distance, but in proximity. And in that proximity, everything changed. Not because the Word lectured us about love, but because the Word loved us." Gabriel was quiet, absorbing the words. "That's what Christmas actually means," Elena continued. "Not the commercialized version, or even the religious duty version. It means that love doesn't stay abstract or distant. It gets close. It takes risk. It becomes touchable, knowable, present. And you're starting to believe that again. I'm starting to want to believe it." Gabriel moved closer, still holding her hand. "Can I tell you what I see when I look at you?" Elena's breath caught. "What?" "I see someone who's been winter for so long she's forgotten she can bloom. But the thaw is starting. I can see it in how you talk to Tico, how you worked on his car at 2 a.m., how you showed up today despite the storm." He paused. "I see someone who's braver than she knows. I don't feel brave. Like I said before, brave people never do." The fire crackled. Outside, the storm continued its fury. But inside the chapel, there was only warmth and possibility. "Gabriel," Elena said softly, "what are we doing?" "What do you mean?" "This. Us. Are we... Is this friendship or something more?" He smiled. "Do you want it to be something more?" "That's not an answer." "Neither is your question." They both laughed, the tension breaking slightly. "I'm terrified," Elena admitted, "of wanting this, of wanting you. Because what if..." Gabriel leaned in and kissed her. It was soft, tentative, a question more than a statement. When he pulled back, he searched her face. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have asked first." Elena pulled him back and kissed him again, deeper this time, 7 years of frozen feeling beginning to thaw. When they finally separated, both were breathing hard. "I'm still terrified," Elena whispered. "Me too," Gabriel admitted. "But I think that's okay." I think maybe the best things are always a little terrifying." They sat together in front of the fire, Elena's head on Gabriel's shoulder, his arm around her, watching the flames dance. "Tell me about your brother," Elena said after a while. "You said he died of cancer." Gabriel took a deep breath. "Marco, he was 2 years younger than me, diagnosed with leukemia when he was 24, fought for 2 years. And the whole time, he kept saying, 'Don't wait to live, Gabe. Don't wait until everything's perfect or safe or guaranteed. Just live.' Did you listen?" "Not at first. After he died, I did the opposite. I made everything about control and safety. No relationships that got too deep. No staying anywhere long enough to get attached." He kissed the top of Elena's head. "But he was right, and I'm tired of waiting." "What would he think of this?" "Of us?" Gabriel smiled. "He'd probably make fun of me for being so dramatic about it, but then he'd tell me not to screw it up." "Good advice. Very practical, my brother." Gabriel's voice caught slightly. "I miss him, especially at Christmas. He loved this time of year." "My mom did too." They sat in comfortable silence. Two people carrying grief but learning they didn't have to carry it alone. Eventually, Elena said, "I need to tell you something." "Okay. I've been reading the manuscript differently lately, since meeting you, and I keep coming back to this one idea. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Not visited, dwelt, stayed, committed to presence even when it was hard. And I think that's what love actually is. Not a feeling that comes and goes, but a choice to stay present, to keep showing up. To dwell with someone even when it's messy or painful or uncertain." Gabriel turned to look at her. "Is that what you want? To try that kind of love?" "I think so, but slowly, because I'm still learning how. Slowly works for me." He kissed her forehead. "We'll figure it out together." Outside, the storm continued, but neither of them noticed anymore. They'd found their own shelter, in honesty, in tentative trust, in the willingness to risk proximity. As the fire burned low and they wrapped themselves in blankets Gabriel had brought from upstairs, Elena thought about the nativity scene in the corner, about a God who chose to be born in a stable, vulnerable and small, rather than arriving in power and glory. Maybe that was the point. Maybe love always started small and vulnerable. A baby in a manger, a fixed toy car, a hand reaching out in a dark chapel, the Word made flesh, love taking form. Elena fell asleep in Gabriel's arms, the chapel holding them both, the storm outside, a reminder that sometimes you have to weather darkness to appreciate light. When she woke hours later, the power was back on, and the storm had passed. Gabriel was still beside her, also just waking. They looked at each other in the dawn light, filtering through the stained glass. "Hi," he said, smiling. "Hi." "So, that happened." Elena laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "It did." "Regrets?" She thought about it honestly. "No. Fear? Yes, but no regrets. I can work with that." They emerged from the chapel to find the orphanage grounds transformed, everything covered in pristine white snow, the world quiet and new. Gabriel walked Elena to the subway, holding her hand the whole way. Before she descended the stairs, he said, "Elena, thank you for staying. For trusting me. For taking the risk. Thank you for being worth the risk." On the train home, Elena pulled out her phone and wrote in her notes app, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us." And in that dwelling, that choosing to stay close, everything changed. Not through grand gestures or perfect circumstances, but through simple presence, through showing up, even in storms, especially in storms. She realized something fundamental. Christmas wasn't just about a moment 2,000 years ago. It was an invitation repeated every day. To choose presence over absence, risk over safety, love over fear. And for the first time in 7 years, Elena was ready to accept that invitation. Part 4, The Great Reflection, Chapter 8, The Dilemma Arrives. Monday morning brought reality crashing back. Elena arrived at work to find an email from Mr. Arnaldo marked urgent. She was being offered a position at the company's London office, higher salary, better title, starting January 15th. "This is a significant opportunity," Mr. Arnaldo said when she was called into his office. "Managing editor for our European division. It's everything you've been working toward." Elena stared at the offer letter. It was everything she'd thought she wanted: security, prestige, distance from the pain of her past. "I need an answer by December 22nd, Mr. Arnaldo continued. "That gives you a week to think about it. But honestly, Elena, this is a no-brainer. People wait their whole careers for an opportunity like this." Elena nodded numbly. "Can I think about it?" "Of course. But don't overthink it. Sometimes the obvious choice is obvious for a reason." She walked back to her desk in a daze. Margaret immediately noticed. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Elena showed her the offer letter. Margaret's eyes widened. "Holy crap! London, that's huge!" "Yeah." "You don't sound excited." "I don't know what I am." Margaret studied her friend's face. "Does this have anything to do with a certain architect?" "It's not just about Gabriel. It's about... I don't know. I feel like I'm finally starting to wake up here. Connect with things that matter. And now I'm supposed to just leave. Well, you don't have to decide this second. Think about it." But Elena couldn't stop thinking about it. The London offer represented her old path. The safe, isolated, professionally successful but personally empty life she'd been living. And Gabriel represented... what? Risk, possibility, a completely uncertain future. She didn't text Gabriel about the offer. She needed to sort through her own thoughts first. That evening, she worked on the manuscript, but the words felt accusatory. The incarnation is God's ultimate risk, giving up heaven's certainty for earth's chaos, trading glory for vulnerability, choosing proximity over safety. It is love's most radical act, to stay when leaving would be easier. Elena closed the book. Was that what she was being asked to do? To choose proximity over safety? Her phone rang. It was her aunt. "Elena, I heard about London. Mr. Arnaldo is friends with your uncle, and he mentioned it. This is wonderful news." "I haven't decided yet." "What's to decide? You have no ties here, no real life to speak of, if we're being honest. This is your chance to start fresh. New city, new opportunities, maybe even meet someone there." The words stung, even though Elena knew her aunt meant well. "I have to go, Aunt Carol. I'm in the middle of something. Just promise me you'll seriously consider it. Your mother would want you to take this opportunity. Would she?" Elena wasn't so sure anymore. On Wednesday, Gabriel texted, "Haven't heard from you. Everything okay?" Elena stared at the message for 10 minutes before responding. "Just busy with work, a lot going on." "Want to talk about it?" "Not yet. I need to figure some things out first." "Okay, but I'm here when you're ready." Elena felt guilty for not telling him about London. But how could she explain that she was considering running away from the first real connection she'd felt in years? Thursday, she went to see Lucia at the chapel. The elderly woman was arranging Advent candles when Elena arrived. "Elena? What a lovely surprise." Then, seeing her face, "Sit down, dear. Something's weighing on you." Elena sat in a front pew, and it all came pouring out. The London offer, her growing feelings for Gabriel, the fear of choosing wrong, the pressure from everyone to take the obvious opportunity. Lucia listened without interrupting. When Elena finished, the older woman was quiet for a long moment. "Can I tell you a story?" Lucia finally asked. Elena nodded. "When I was 35, I was engaged to a wonderful man. He got a job offer in California, his dream position. He asked me to come with him, to leave Boston and my family and my work here. And I was terrified, so I made excuses, said I needed more time, and then I said no. What happened? He went to California. I stayed here. He wrote for a while, but eventually the letters stopped. I married someone else years later, a good man, but not the one my heart wanted. And I spent decades wondering, what if? So you're saying I should stay? Choose Gabriel?" Lucia shook her head. "No, dear. I'm saying I made my choice out of fear, not faith. And that's what I regret. Not the outcome, but the reason behind it." She took Elena's hand. "The question isn't, what's the safe choice? The question is, what brings you to life? Both options scare me. Then let me ask you this. Which one scares you because it's risky? And which one scares you because deep down, you know it's wrong?" Elena sat with that question. The London offer scared her because it would mean leaving Gabriel, leaving Tico, leaving the version of herself she was becoming. But it scared her in a familiar way. The fear of missing out on success, of disappointing people. Staying scared her in a different way. The way vulnerability scares you. The way opening your heart scares you. The way loving something you could lose scares you. "I think London scares me because I know it would be running away," Elena said slowly. "And staying scares me because it means staying present, staying open, staying alive." Lucia smiled. "There's your answer. But everyone says London is the smart choice. Everyone isn't living your life, Elena. Only you are." Lucia gestured to the Advent candles. "Do you know what these represent? Waiting, hope, preparing for something new to be born. But nothing new can be born if you keep clinging to what's dying. What's dying? Your old life. The one where you were safe, but not whole. Sometimes we have to let something die to make room for resurrection." Elena looked at the candles, their flames steady and bright in the quiet chapel. "I'm so tired of being afraid. Then stop letting fear make your decisions. Make them from love instead." "What does that even mean?" Lucia stood and walked to the nativity scene at the front of the chapel. "Come here. Look at this." Elena joined her. "Mary and Joseph," Lucia said, pointing to the figures. "Do you think they chose the stable because it was safe? Because it was the smart career move? Because everyone approved? No. They chose it because it was where new life was being born. They chose presence over prestige, proximity over comfort. And because of that choice, everything changed." Elena stared at the simple wooden figures. "You're saying my choice is like that?" "Like the Christmas story. Every choice to love is like the Christmas story," Lucia said gently. "The word became flesh. That means love stopped being an idea and became a presence, a commitment, a staying with even when it's hard." She turned to Elena. "So ask yourself, where is love becoming real in your life? Where is new life trying to be born? And are you going to run from it or stay present to it?" Elena felt tears on her cheeks. "I don't want to run anymore." "Then don't." That evening, Elena did something she hadn't done in years. She called Gabriel. "Hey," he answered warmly. "You okay? You've been quiet. Can we meet? I need to talk to you about something." "Of course. When?" "Now." An hour later, they were back at the Fireside Cafe where they'd had their first coffee together. Elena told him everything. The London offer, the pressure from her boss and family, her fear of choosing wrong, her conversation with Lucia. Gabriel listened carefully, his expression unreadable. "So," he said when she finished, "what are you going to do?" "I don't know. That's why I wanted to talk to you." "Elena, I can't make this decision for you." "I know, but I need to know what you want, what we are, where this is going." Gabriel took a deep breath. "Okay, honesty time. Please, I'm falling in love with you." He said it simply, directly. "Maybe I already have, but Elena, I won't be the reason you turn down a great opportunity. I've seen what happens when people make sacrifices for relationships and then resent it later. I don't want that for us." "So you think I should take the London job?" "I think you should do what makes you come alive." He reached across the table and took her hand. "In these past few weeks, watching you work with Tico, seeing you engage with the restoration project, listening to you talk about your manuscript like it actually means something, you've been more present, more real, more yourself than I'm guessing you've been in years. And I don't know if London will give you that or take it away. Only you know that." Elena squeezed his hand. "I'm scared, Gabriel." "Of what specifically?" "Of choosing you and having it not work out. Of giving up this opportunity and regretting it. Of staying and you leaving anyway because your projects take you all over. Of opening my heart and losing again." "All valid fears," Gabriel acknowledged. "But can I tell you what I'm scared of?" "What?" "I'm scared of you choosing safety over truth. I'm scared of you going to London not because you want to, but because you're running from what's real here. I'm scared of waking up in 6 months and realizing you're gone because you were too afraid to stay." They sat in silence, holding hands across the table. "I need to think," Elena said finally. "Take all the time you need. But Elena, whatever you decide from love, not fear, even if that means choosing London." They parted with a long hug outside the cafe. As Elena walked home through the cold December night, she felt the weight of the decision pressing on her chest. That night, she opened the manuscript to a passage she'd been avoiding. "The incarnation demands response. When love takes flesh and dwells among us, we must choose. Will we dwell with love in return? Or will we protect ourselves from its scandalous proximity? Will we risk being transformed by presence? Or will we maintain safe distance? The choice is not between good and bad, but between life and something less than life." Elena read it 3 times. Then she picked up her phone and wrote a text to Gabriel. "The word became flesh and dwelt among us. Not visited briefly, not made a safe appearance from heaven, dwelt, stayed, committed to presence. I'm starting to understand what that means." His response came quickly. "What does it mean?" Elena typed slowly, choosing each word carefully. "It means love is a location, not just a feeling. It's choosing to be somewhere, with someone, even when it's uncertain. It's dwelling, not just passing through." "And where do you want to dwell, Elena?" She stared at the question for a long time, then typed, "I think I want to dwell here, where life is being born, even if it's scary." "Even if it's scary," Gabriel echoed. "I can work with that." Elena smiled through tears. She hadn't made her final decision yet. She still had until December 22nd to officially respond to the London offer. But something inside her had shifted. The fog was clearing. She spent Friday working on the manuscript with new urgency. Arnaldo wanted it finished by the 23rd, and she was determined to complete it, not out of obligation, but out of love for the work itself. As she translated, she felt like the ancient words were speaking directly to her situation. Christmas is not nostalgia for a distant past, nor is it escapism into fantasy. It is the celebration of God's radical choice to be with us, not above us, not distant from us, but in the midst of our mess and beauty and uncertainty. And it invites us to make the same choice, to be with each other, to stay present, to dwell in love, even when easier options present themselves. Elena paused, her hands hovering over the keyboard. Then she wrote in her notes, "I have spent 7 years being absent from my own life, translating other people's words about presence while perfecting the art of absence. But love is calling me back, through a broken toy car, through a kind man who sees me, through children who need someone to keep promises, through ancient words that refuse to stay ancient. The question isn't whether I'm ready. The question is, will I answer?" Saturday morning, Elena woke with clarity. She knew what she needed to do. But first, she had one more place to visit. Part 5. The Test and the Choice. Chapter 9. The Resurrection of Feeling. Elena stood outside the cemetery gates for 10 minutes before entering. She hadn't been here since the funeral 7 years ago. Couldn't bear it. The physical evidence of absence was too much. But today, she needed to come, needed to talk to her mother, even if the conversation was one-sided. She found the grave easily. She'd memorized the location even though she'd never returned. A simple headstone. Sarah Morrison, beloved mother, teacher, friend. Her voice brought joy to all who knew her. Elena knelt in the snow and placed a small bouquet of winter flowers at the base. "Hi, Mom," she said quietly. "It's been a while. I'm sorry it took me so long to come back." The cemetery was silent, except for distant traffic and birds calling in the bare trees. "I need your advice," Elena continued, "even though I know you can't answer. But maybe I'll hear what you would say if you could." She told her mother everything, about Gabriel, about Tico, about the orphanage restoration, about the London offer, about her fear and her hope and her confusion. "Everyone says London is the smart choice," Elena said. "And maybe it is. But Mom, I think you'd tell me something different. I think you'd tell me that being smart isn't the same as being alive." She wiped tears from her cheeks. "You always said that Christmas was about God choosing to be close to us, about love taking form, and I'm finally starting to understand what you meant. Love isn't an abstract thing we think about. It's concrete. It's showing up. It's fixing broken toy cars at 2 a.m. It's staying in a storm when leaving would be safer. It's choosing to dwell with people even when it's complicated and uncertain." Elena touched the headstone gently. "I think you'd like Gabriel. He's kind like you were. He sees people, really sees them. And he's helping me remember how to see too, how to be present, how to risk caring again." A gust of wind blew snow around her, and for just a moment, Elena felt something she couldn't quite name. Not her mother's presence exactly, but permission, release, blessing. "I'm going to stay, Mom," Elena said firmly. "I'm going to turn down London. I'm going to choose life over safety. I'm going to try to love like you did, openly, even knowing it might hurt. Because you were right. That's what it means to be fully human." She sat with her mother's memory for a while longer, then stood to leave. As she walked toward the gate, she felt lighter, as if she'd put down a burden she'd been carrying for 7 years. On her way out, she texted Gabriel, "Can you meet me at the orphanage tomorrow? I have something important to tell you." "Everything okay?" "More than okay," Just trust me. Always. Sunday morning arrived with bright sunshine that made the snow sparkle. Elena dressed carefully, her mother's scarf, but also a red sweater instead of her usual gray, a small act of defiance against her old self. She arrived at the orphanage to find Gabriel already there, working with a small crew to paint the gathering hall. When he saw her, his face lit up. "Hey, what's this important thing you wanted to tell me? Can we talk privately first?" They went to the chapel, the place where everything had changed during the storm. Elena turned to face Gabriel, her heart pounding. "I'm turning down London." Gabriel's eyes widened. "Elena, let me finish. I'm not turning it down because of you. Well, not only because of you. I'm turning it down because I realized something. I've spent 7 years running from life. And London would just be another form of running, a more prestigious form, but still running. Are you sure? Because I don't want you to have regrets." "I'm sure," Elena said firmly. "Gabriel, these past few weeks have woken something up in me that I thought was dead, and it's not just romantic feelings for you, though those are real and terrifying and wonderful. It's about remembering who I am, what I value, what I want my life to be about." She took his hands. "And I want my life to be about presence, about dwelling with people who matter, about using my gifts to serve, not just to achieve. And I can't do that from London. I can do that here, with you and Tico in this community." Gabriel pulled her into a tight hug. "You're sure, really sure?" "I'm terrified, but yes, I'm sure." When they pulled apart, Gabriel was grinning. "Then I have something to tell you, too." "What?" "Remember how I said I move around for projects? That I never stay anywhere long?" "Yes." "Well, I talked to my boss. This orphanage project is going to need ongoing support even after the initial restoration. Community programming, maintenance oversight, relationship building with the neighborhood. They've approved a permanent position here in Boston, and I've accepted it." Elena's jaw dropped. "You're staying?" "I'm staying. I was going to tell you on Christmas. But since we're doing grand declarations..." He cupped her face gently. "Elena, I'm staying because this matters. This work matters. These kids matter. And you matter most of all." "Gabriel, I know we're both scared. I know we're both broken in our own ways. But maybe that's okay. Maybe broken people who choose to stay and love anyway are exactly what the world needs more of." Elena kissed him then, not tentatively like in the chapel during the storm, but with certainty, with choice, with the full presence of someone who'd decided to stop running. When they finally pulled apart, both were laughing and crying at the same time. "So what now?" Gabriel asked. "Now we finish this translation, and then we finish this restoration. And then..." Elena looked around the chapel, at the building beyond, at the neighborhood outside. "Then we see what else needs restoring. Together." "Together," Gabriel agreed. "I like the sound of that." They spent the rest of the day working on the gathering hall with the crew. Elena hung the final photographs, images of children from decades past, their faces full of hope and mischief and life, a reminder that this building had always been about creating home for those who needed it. Tico arrived in the afternoon with his social worker. When he saw Elena, he ran to her and hugged her legs. "You came back," he said. His voice was still quiet, but growing stronger. "I promised I would, didn't I?" Elena knelt to his level. "And I always keep my promises. Are you going to stay? For always?" Elena looked up at Gabriel, then back at Tico. "I'm going to stay. Not for always. Nothing is forever. But for as long as I'm needed and wanted here. Is that okay?" Tico nodded seriously. Then, Will you help me write a letter to Santa? The social worker said I could write one, but I don't know what to ask for. Elena felt her heart crack open a little wider. I'd be honored. What do you want to tell Santa? Tico thought hard. I want to ask for my mom to get better, and for a real home. And he looked at Elena shyly. And for you to stay. Elena pulled the boy into a hug, tears streaming down her face. You don't need Santa for that last one. I'm already staying. They sat together at a table, and Elena helped Tico write his letter. As they worked, Gabriel watched from across the room, and Elena caught his eye. He smiled at her, and she smiled back. A smile of recognition, of commitment, of choosing to be present. That evening, after everyone had left, Elena and Gabriel sat on the front porch steps watching the sun set over Roxbury. Thank you, Elena said quietly. For what? For seeing me, for being patient with my fear, for showing me that love isn't just a word we translate. It's something we do, something we are. Gabriel put his arm around her. Thank you for taking the risk, for choosing to stay, for trusting us. They sat in comfortable silence as the city lights began to twinkle and the first stars appeared. You know what today is? Gabriel asked. December 16th? It's the third Sunday of Advent, Joy Sunday, when we remember that the light is coming, even in the darkness. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. I feel it, the light coming, not because everything's perfect or certain, but because I'm finally present to receive it. The Word made flesh, Gabriel said softly. The Word made flesh, Elena agreed. Love taking form, love dwelling with us. They watched the sky darken, neither wanting to leave this moment. Finally, Gabriel said, I should get you home. Big week ahead. You have a manuscript to finish and a job offer to formally decline. Don't remind me, Elena groaned. Mr. Arnaldo is going to be furious. Probably, but you'll survive. Will I? Yes, because you're braver than you think, and because you're not facing it alone. Elena stood and pulled Gabriel to his feet. Before they left, she took one more look at the orphanage, this building that was being restored, that was learning to house life again, like her. Thank you, she whispered to the building, to the moment, to whatever grace had brought her here. Thank you for giving me a reason to stay. Chapter 10. Under the Christmas Lights. Monday morning, Elena walked into Mr. Arnaldo's office with her resignation letter and her refusal of the London position. He was, as predicted, furious. You're making the biggest mistake of your career, he said coldly. Don't expect a recommendation from me when this little romantic fantasy falls apart. Elena took the criticism calmly. I understand you're disappointed. But this isn't about romance. It's about choosing the life I actually want to live, not the life everyone else thinks I should want. You're throwing away your future. No, sir. I'm finally claiming it. Later that evening, Elena found an email from Mr. Arnaldo. It was short, professional, cold. I understand your decision. The manuscript has been exceptionally well received. Despite our differences, your work speaks for itself. Elena read it twice. For the first time, his approval, or lack of it, meant nothing to her. She closed the laptop, smiled softly, and went back to the kitchen where laughter echoed from the living room. Some doors, she realized, don't need to be slammed. They close quietly when you stop needing what's behind them. She walked out of his office with her head high. Margaret was waiting by her desk. You did it. You really turned down London. I did. And you quit. I gave 2 weeks' notice. I'll finish the manuscript and train someone on my ongoing projects. But yes, I'm leaving. Margaret hugged her. I'm proud of you. Terrified for you, but proud. That's fair. I'm terrified too. So what's next? I don't know exactly. I've saved enough to take a few months to figure it out. Gabriel mentioned they'll need someone to help with programming at the Orphanage Community Center. Maybe I could do that. Or maybe I'll freelance translation work. Or maybe something completely different will appear. That's very undefined. Elena laughed. I know. It's deeply uncomfortable, but also kind of exciting. For the rest of the week, Elena threw herself into finishing the manuscript. She worked late every night, not out of obligation, but out of love for the project. These words had walked with her through her transformation. It felt right to see them through to completion. Friday evening, December 21st, she typed the final sentence of the final chapter. And so the word remains flesh, dwells among us still, in every act of love that chooses presence over absence, proximity over distance, risk over safety. Christmas is not a date on a calendar, but an invitation repeated daily. Will you let love take flesh in your life? Will you dwell with the Word made human? Will you become yourself, an incarnation of grace? Elena sat back, tears streaming down her face. She'd translated hundreds of thousands of words over the past 3 months, but these final ones felt like they'd translated her. She sent the completed manuscript to the publisher, then texted Gabriel. It's done. The manuscript is finished. Congratulations. That deserves celebration. Dinner? Yes, but not at a restaurant. I have a better idea. Tell me. Meet me at the Common at 7, by the big tree? Elena arrived at Boston Common at 6:45, wearing her red sweater and her mother's scarf. The enormous Christmas tree in the center of the park was lit up, surrounded by people taking photos, couples walking hand in hand, children pointing at the lights in wonder. Gabriel arrived right at 7, carrying 2 cups of hot chocolate and a bag from a nearby bakery. I figured if we're having a picnic in December, we need proper supplies, he said, grinning. They found a bench near the tree and sat close together, watching the lights shimmer. So, Gabriel said, the manuscript is done. London is officially declined. You've left your job. How does it feel? Like standing at the edge of a cliff, Elena admitted. Terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Any regrets? Not yet. Ask me again when I'm job hunting in February. Gabriel laughed. Fair enough. He pulled something from his coat pocket. I have something for you. Early Christmas present. He handed her a small wrapped package. Elena opened it carefully. Inside was a leather bookmark with words burned into it. The Word made flesh, love dwelling among us. I had it made, Gabriel explained. From that passage you kept talking about, I thought, maybe for your next translation project, or just for whatever books you read, it could remind you of what you've learned. Elena ran her fingers over the words, deeply moved. Gabriel, this is perfect. Thank you. There's more. Look at the back. She turned it over, burned into the reverse side. For Elena, who chose to dwell. Gabriel. So you'll remember, he said softly, that you stayed, that you chose presence, that you became your own incarnation. Elena kissed him deeply, not caring that they were in public, that children might see, that her old self would have been mortified by such a display. When they pulled apart, Gabriel was smiling. I have a confession. What? I've been working on something too, a surprise for Christmas Eve, but I need your help to pull it off. What kind of surprise? Well, remember how we've been fixing up the gathering hall, and we invited the neighborhood to come see it? Yes. I was thinking we should do something bigger, a real community Christmas Eve celebration. Food, music, the whole thing. Show people what the space is becoming, but I can't plan it alone. Elena felt a spark of excitement. What did you have in mind? They spent the next hour brainstorming, a free community dinner, caroling, maybe a small gift for every child who came, volunteers from local churches to help serve and welcome people. But it's only 3 days until Christmas Eve, Elena pointed out. Can we really pull this off? Not alone, but with help. Maybe. Gabriel looked at her hopefully. What do you think? Too ambitious. Elena thought about Tico. About all the other children in the neighborhood who might not have anywhere warm to go on Christmas Eve. About how her mother used to always say that Christmas was for bringing people together, not celebrating in isolation. It's ambitious, she agreed. But I think my mother would say that's exactly the point. Christmas wasn't safe or sensible. It was God taking the biggest risk of all. Maybe we should too. So that's a yes. That's a yes. Let's do it. They spent Friday night and all day Saturday organizing. Elena made phone calls to churches, community groups, local businesses. Gabriel coordinated with his construction crew and the nonprofit board. Margaret volunteered to help cook. Lucia from the chapel offered to bring volunteers. By Sunday morning, Christmas Eve, they'd somehow pulled together a small miracle. Food for 150 people, dozens of volunteers, donated gifts for 30 children, a local church choir agreeing to come sing. The gathering hall was transformed. The old photographs hung on the walls, reminding everyone of the building's history. Long tables were set up, decorated simply with pine branches and candles. The nativity scene from the chapel sat in a place of honor by the fireplace. At 4 p.m., people started arriving. Families from the neighborhood, many looking hesitant, unsure if this invitation was really for them. Elena and Gabriel stood at the door, welcoming everyone personally. "Merry Christmas," Elena said to each person. "We're so glad you're here." Tico arrived with his social worker, and his face lit up when he saw the space. "It's beautiful," he said, his voice carrying more confidence now. "You helped make it beautiful," Elena told him. "This is your home too." As the space filled with people, Elena felt something shift in the atmosphere. Strangers became neighbors. Children who'd never met started playing together. Adults who'd walked past each other on the street every day began actually talking, sharing stories, laughing. This was incarnation, Elena realized. Love taking form in shared food, in welcoming presence, in space made for communion. At 6 p.m., they gathered everyone for a simple program. Gabriel spoke briefly about the history of the building and the vision for its future. Then he invited Lucia to say a blessing. Lucia stood in front of the gathering, her elderly face radiant in the candlelight. "This building has been home to many over its century of life," she began. "And tonight, it's home to all of us. We come from different backgrounds, different struggles, different stories. But tonight, we're all just neighbors, all just people who need warmth and community and hope." She gestured to the nativity scene. Christmas reminds us that God chose to be born not in a palace, but in a stable. Not among the powerful, but among the vulnerable. Not in comfort, but in community. And that choice changed everything. Lucia's eyes found Elena in the crowd. Tonight, we celebrate that same choice. The choice to be present to each other, to dwell together, to let love take form in this place. The word became flesh once, but it becomes flesh again every time we choose love over fear, proximity over distance, presence over absence. There was a moment of profound silence. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone joined in. The choir sang carols, old familiar ones that had everyone joining in. Silent Night. O come all ye faithful. Joy to the world. Elena found herself singing, really singing, for the first time since her mother's death. Her voice was rusty, uncertain, but it was there. And as she sang, she felt her mother's presence not as grief, but as blessing. After dinner, after gifts were distributed to delighted children, After the choir had sung their final song, people lingered. No one wanted to leave this warmth, this community, this unexpected gift of belonging. Gabriel found Elena in the kitchen, helping with dishes. "We did it," he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "We actually pulled it off. We had a lot of help. But it was your vision, your heart." He turned her around to face him. "Elena, watching you tonight, welcoming people, helping coordinate everything, singing with the choir, you were fully alive, fully yourself, fully present." "It felt good," Elena admitted. "Really good, like I was doing what I was made for." "You were." He kissed her forehead. "Merry Christmas, Elena." "Merry Christmas, Gabriel." They stood in the kitchen, holding each other, listening to the sounds of community beyond the door. Laughter, conversation, connection. "You know what I realized tonight," Elena said. "What?" "That Christmas isn't just about what happened 2,000 years ago. It's about what's happening right now. Love becoming flesh, the Word dwelling among us. It's not a memory, it's a present reality." Gabriel nodded. "And it can happen any day we choose it." "Every day," Elena said with certainty. "If we choose love, if we choose presence, if we choose to dwell with each other, every day can be Christmas." They were interrupted by Tico running into the kitchen. "Elena, Gabriel, come see. It started snowing." They followed the boy back to the gathering hall, where people were gathered at the windows, watching fat snowflakes fall silently outside. Someone started singing White Christmas, and soon everyone joined in. Elena stood between Gabriel and Tico, surrounded by community, and felt something she hadn't felt in 7 years. Complete peace. Not because everything was perfect or certain, but because she was finally, fully present to her own life. Later that night, after everyone had left and they'd finished cleaning up, Elena and Gabriel stood alone in the gathering hall. "Thank you," Elena said. "For what?" "For that night we collided, for asking me to help with this place, for being patient with my fear, for showing me what it means to dwell in love." Gabriel pulled her close. "Thank you for staying, for choosing this life, for choosing us." They stood in the quiet space, snow falling outside the windows, the city settling into Christmas night. "I should go," Elena said reluctantly. "My aunt's expecting me for Christmas breakfast tomorrow." "How do you think that's going to go, now that you've turned down London?" "Probably terrible," Elena admitted. "But I'll survive. I'm not the same person who used to shrink at family gatherings." "No, you're not." Gabriel walked her to the door. "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow afternoon, after family obligations?" "Nothing planned. Why?" "Want to come back here. Tico's social worker said he could visit. We could maybe start planning what comes next for this place." Elena smiled. "I'd love that. It's a date." "A date," Gabriel agreed. "Our first official Christmas together." He kissed her goodnight, long and sweet, a promise of more to come. Elena walked home through the snow, her heart full, her mind clear. She thought about the manuscript she'd just finished translating, about how those ancient words had walked her through her own resurrection. The Word became flesh. Love took form, and it was still happening, still being born, in broken people who chose to stay present to life. When she got home, Elena sat at her desk and wrote in her journal. "Tonight I understood what Christmas really means. It's not about perfection or certainty or having everything figured out. It's about presence, about choosing to show up, to dwell with others, to let love take form in concrete, messy, beautiful ways. 7 years ago, I lost my mother and decided safety was better than risk, but I was wrong. Living small isn't safe. It's death by 1,000 tiny absences, Real life, full life, abundant life comes from showing up, from staying present, from dwelling in love even when it's scary. The Word became flesh. And every day I choose love over fear. I participate in that same miracle. I become flesh too, fully human, fully present, fully alive. Merry Christmas, Mom. I think you'd be proud of who I'm becoming. Elena closed the journal and looked at the bookmark Gabriel had given her, sitting on her desk. The Word made flesh, love dwelling among us. She picked it up and placed it in her mother's Bible, the one she hadn't opened since the funeral. Maybe tomorrow, after family breakfast, she'd read it again. Maybe it was time to reclaim that part of her heritage too. For now, she just sat in the quiet of her apartment, snow falling outside, Christmas lights twinkling across the city, and felt the profound peace of someone who'd finally come home to herself. This has been a story from Good Stories today. Christmas reminds us that love is not an idea. It's a choice, a presence, a dwelling with. Elena spent years translating words about love without living them, until one collision on a snowy street changed everything. This story isn't just about Elena. It's about every person who's ever built walls to protect themselves from pain, only to discover those walls also keep out joy. It's about choosing presence over absence, risk over safety, life over mere existence. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and every day we choose to show up, to love, to stay present. We participate in that same miracle. Every day we choose to dwell in love. It can be Christmas. If this story touched you, subscribe to Good Stories today and turn on notifications. We share stories of courage, transformation, and hope. Stories that remind us we're all more resilient than we know. Leave a comment about which part resonated most with you, and share this story with someone who might need to remember. Love is always worth the risk, because the greatest miracle isn't what happened 2,000 years ago. It's what happens every time we choose to love anyway. Merry Christmas, and may every day be an opportunity to let love take flesh in your life.